How effective would a more traditional-minded pope be in this day and age? Suppose we had the likes of Pope St. Gregory the Great in there. What could he do that might change the status quo of matters within the church?
Well, you know, we sort of were halfway or a quarter of the way there under Benedict. If Pope Benedict had not simply been right-minded, but also as pushy as the current pope. If you could imagine a pope with Benedict's orientation and Francis's drive. You don't like it? You're out of the job! Give me a call from Alaska or wherever you end up. Well, you know, that would have been neat. I would have enjoyed watching it, frankly. That's why so many people watch The Young Pope. There's a certain amount of wish fulfillment in there. But, and here's the big but, that would also have caused a great many defections from the faith. I mean, imagine if you had a pope who was every bishop here in the United States pushed Humanae Vitae and said, you know why you guys are all upset over immigration and stuff? It's because you're not breeding. Well, we would lose a lot of lukewarm Catholics over that. A lot. And that would have consequences. It would also, some good, some bad. And I know, ladies and gentlemen, that our first impulse is, wow, that'd be great, I'd be in on that deal. Well, maybe you would be, maybe you wouldn't. Because the blowback from the civil authorities in certain countries, maybe not this one, maybe not under this administration, but certainly under the last one, and maybe under a future one, would have been tremendous. So, I think a pope of that sort would encounter a lot of problems. But there's a second thing, and that is, do we deserve a pope of that sort as Catholics? I mean, the majority of us. That's a whole other issue.
Do we?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, we lukewarm are the majority. You know, the pious are always, the devout are always a small minority, never more than now. A pope like that would be a martyr, a dry martyr, if not a wet one, a white martyr, if not a red martyr.
Right.
You know, it's hard to say. I mean, I'd like to think that I would revel under such a pope, and I like to think that I'd be in the forefront of his defenders. But unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, you never know until you come to the point. I'd like to think that if I were faced with martyrdom, I would persevere. But I don't know that. And nobody does until you come to it. I think that I wouldn't mind a quick martyrdom like Padre Pro got. You know, you're up, Padre Pro, you know, St. Miguel Pro, you're lined up against the wall,
right.
They shoot you, Viva Cristo Rey.
Yeah.
That I'm hoping that I could do, but all this, you know, pulling things out of you and putting you in steam and just terrible things that some people do to martyrs. I don't know that I would persevere with that kind of a threat. So, and believe me, ladies and gentlemen, I tell you that I hope none of us have to endure that. Because, not speaking for any of you, but certainly speaking for myself, I do not know that I would persevere, and I'd just as happily not be put to the test.
He had a follow-up question.
Yeah.
If a pope like St. Gregory was in there, would sedevacantists be happy with him?
Some of them might be. But some of them might not be. I mean, some would point out that he probably swore allegiance to the pope before him, who was not a rightful pope. You know, I mean, sedevacantists, again, vary as much as anybody else on any question.
Yeah.
You remember that for some sedevacantists, no one who has sworn allegiance to any pope since John the 23rd could be a valid pope.
Right.
Well...
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. You'd have to ask every given sedevacantist himself what he thought. I mean, that's the problem with sedevacantism, in that it basically we're at an end.
Yeah.
Sedevacantism, in that sense, could have made sense so long as the last bishop consecrated by Pius XII was still alive. Interestingly, the last one of those was a communist, the Marxist Bishop of Juarez, Mexico. Yeah, it's kind of funny if you think about it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
You know, I think a lot of people, you know, they, as this, it's kind of in this question where, you know, we want a pope, and we want all these crises, all these problems, you know, to be gone, and then a period of peace. Everyone goes to Latin Mass. But you know, one of the things I learned from reading your book, Vicars of Christ, The History of the Popes, is that really the history of the Church is nonstop crisis. It's going from one crisis to
one
another.
catastrophe to another.
It's like, oh, finally we're done with the early Christian persecutions, martyrdoms. Oh, well, here we go.
Here we go with
schism. Here we go with corruption between. I mean, the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And then, oh, we thought we're done with that. Oh, here comes the Reformation.
And
it doesn't end.
No, it doesn't, because it's the history of mankind.
Yeah.
And that, because of the fall, is always nasty. You know, if you look at the 18th century, the only pontificate that didn't really have any major problems was that of Benedict XIV.
Wow.
And he only lasted around 7 or 8 years. Benedict XIV was a great fellow. And the biggest thing he had to worry about was whether or not vampires exist.
Really?
That was a big question.
What happened?
They said they could. They might.
Wow.
Well, there was a whole rash.
What year was this?
This is the 1740s. There was a whole rash in Eastern Europe of vampire cases, which were generally dealt with by the Austrian government. And this led to the writing of a book there was a number of books, most famous, Auguste Calmet's book on the question. The question is, can these things be real? And Benedict looked at the stone and said, yeah, I suppose they can be. Didn't say they were, said it was a possibility. But the thing was, we had all of these occurrences, and as we've said in previous episodes, the Austrian bureaucrats dealing with them wrote about them in this dull, bureaucratic German that was, I mean, the same tone that they'd order a bunch of pens in, you know. Obviously, they weren't impressed. You know, it was you or me. You know, oh my gosh, it's a vampire. This is vampire, huh? All right, take a squad of men out, look into it, report back. Don't disinter anything at night. Stake whatever you find that's affected. Rebury what isn't, and then come back and fill out these forms.
Wow.
You know, it's a very different time.
Yeah, very much so. I love our tangents tonight. We
really have got all over the place, but still, I have to admit the notion of a bored bureaucrat faced with a vampire.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, you think you're going to impress me. This is a crucifix. Go away. I'll come for you in the morning. If you expect him to be excited, he's not going to be. They don't pay him enough to be excited. There is, ladies and gentlemen, a certain blessing in boredom. Now, the bored bureaucrat, well, there's something there. I don't know what.
Okay, well, that's it for this episode.
Yeah, hope you're happy, or at least bored like an Austrian bureaucrat faced with a vampire outbreak.